Hi, Stephen. It's really good to meet you. So you've been running digital at Runnymede for quite a few years now, haven't you?
I have.
And you've been using the Jadu platform to great effect. Sounds like there's a lot of transformation happening at Runnymede. I know you've done a lot of work on voice automation and integration with telephony, which has been absolutely phenomenal. And I know you've done some work with Microsoft Teams and the sort of, you've been working with our consulting team on getting integration with your Jadu platform to Microsoft Teams. Could you just provide an overview of the Teams integrations with the Jadu platform, sort of, and how you're using the technology?
Yeah, sure. So at Runnymede Borough Council, we've been using the Power Platform, specifically Power Automate, for many years now. And we use it as our middleware to connect our frontline services to our back office teams, and then to get data into the CRM system so we can create our single view of our customer records. So for us, the opportunity to work with the Jadu consultant team to develop out a Teams integration was a natural next step for us, really. So we were quite excited to kind of work together on that. In terms of the Teams integration, the way it works is effectively we've got customer contact that lands in the CRM system, Jadu Connect. When that contact lands in the CRM system, we trigger something called a webhook, and that webhook fires over a JSON payload to Power Automate. And then within Power Automate, we have lots of capability in there to kind of design and deliver different automations and workflows to meet the council's requirements. So for this particular integration and build we've been working on, we catch the workflow JSON, and that effectively includes all of the data that we need to display an adaptive card in Microsoft Teams. But then it does some clever stuff in terms of cleansing the data, and then we format that data in a way that's user-friendly for our officers. And then we post that data into a Teams chat. So we create an automation to create a chat with an officer and then to post an adaptive card. For me, an adaptive card is effectively like putting a Microsoft form or a Jadu form into Teams, and it allows our officers to interact with a case and then update that case, but in an environment and tool that they use all day, every day. So we're really excited about the integration and can see where it can go, and lots of other use cases around how it could be used. For us, we are currently just sending it to a specific officer, but councils can build an automation to create the contact and send it to a service area as well. So you can effectively have groups of services with customer contact being managed in a Teams chat and channel. So the opportunities are endless around that, really.
Well, that sounds really, really interesting. And I suppose the outcome really is, the user fills in a form, a customer fills in a form, reporting something, attaching a photo. They can send that through the usual channel, through your website, by filling in that online form. And obviously the magic that happens in the background is that you're using Microsoft Power Automate to a workflow, trigger a workflow, and that's then generating an adaptive card in the Teams environment and sending the case directly to the officer at the council. What were the challenges that you faced in sort of getting all of it done? Because it sounds like you've used all the low-code tools. You've not had to write any code specifically to do all of that.
No, so I think because we've used Power Automate and Jadu Connect for many years now, so we've got the in-house capability to build out these low-code automations and workflows, which is great. One of the main challenges for us, I would say, is the change management piece, I suppose. So when we went live with Jadu, we've been using emails and XFP forms for data capture for our service design and workflow requirements. That works to a point, but we realised across the council that we weren't getting the response rates we were requiring, and there was improvement needed. And for me, challenging the status quo, we need to think about, if we've got someone in customer services in Jadu Connect all day, every day, it makes sense for them to be interacting with Jadu. They know Jadu in the system. But if you've got an officer, say within our finance team or in our legal team, that gets a customer contact across the council, and it might be an ad hoc one, so it might be a piece of post or a telephone message, they could get that once, twice a month potentially. So what we didn't want to do was then force officers' hands to learn new systems. What we wanted to do was to put the customer contact and Jadu in the hands of our officers. And it was only a natural fit that we looked at Teams, because we know within Runnymede and across local government, Teams is heavily adopted. So it made sense to try and land that contact there. In terms of the challenges more specifically, we touched on change management. It is a change that needed to be communicated across the business. We worked closely with our top users of our telephone message department callback service, and we got some really good feedback. So I'd encourage anyone going through this process to build out their proof of concept and then get some feedback with real users. We learned a lot, and it meant we could go away and update the adaptive card template, made sure that once an adaptive card, for example, was closed down, that we retain the information, and that we could use things like colors, so that if there was an adaptive card that was requiring an action, the H1 heading could be red, and then when it was closed, it could be green, so officers can really clearly see in their chat timeline effectively what required action. So we learned a lot through the process, and I think we continue to learn as we adopt this new approach.
Oh, thanks, Stephen. I mean, it sounds like there was a lot of cultural sort of shift that needed to happen, but because the teams were already using Microsoft Teams, they were in a familiar environment. So it sounds like the change wasn't particularly challenging. How do you think, you mentioned how this could be used across local government? I mean, as you rightly say, every local authority uses Microsoft Teams. It's kind of ubiquitous now as a common platform. How do you think sort of other local authorities can be supported with integration like that?
So for me, as you say, Microsoft Stack is used across the majority of UK local government. There are some councils that don't use Microsoft, but more often than not, they do. So these solutions are readily available within licensing that councils have. So I think the first thing is it's a low-cost solution to councils and IT departments should they wish to use it. And I would certainly encourage people to start tapping into their Microsoft licensing, because there's so much capability and potential there. And at Runnymede, our strategy is maximise the use of technology. So we want to leverage the tools we have. So that means leveraging the Jadu Digital Platform more and getting more value out of it. And at the same time, complementing it with things like Microsoft and the tools they have. So I think councils can take a similar approach, sweat their assets, and then reduce their overheads in terms of IT costs, taken effectively a build approach rather than buy, because if you can dream and design it, more often than not, you can build it. So I think that's our strategy at Runnymede, and I think local government could take a similar approach, and they'd get lots of benefits from doing so. In terms of other benefits for UK local government, I would say in the same way Jadu Library, we can export builds and we can reuse them. That principle applies to Power Platform, so we can export workflows and we can make them readily available. So across the local government community, we can share these builds and we can share learning and proof of concepts, and then build up this library of potential flows that connect into Jadu, which for me is going to be really exciting. But fundamentally, from a solution perspective, why make officers and employees learn new systems when we can connect to the ones they already use? Yes. I think innovation is about reducing complexity as well as maximising the tech. So by being bold and reducing the tech and using what we've got, I think we could put customer contact where it needs to be ultimately with our officers and a tool they use, and we're already starting to see some of those results, which is great.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the strategies that Jadu's kind of, or the framework that we've sort of encompassed, is called the digital layer. And it's all about leveraging what you have. It's about interoperability and how you can build accessible, sort of diverse services that are easy to use, that customers can access, where they can connect with their data, right? But one of the challenges that I suppose all local authorities face at the moment is, how do they become AI ready? You know, everyone is buying, it's sort of a shiny object syndrome at the moment. These can be expensive mistakes, can't they, investing in AI? One of the powerful things about Power Automate is it does come with Copilot services and Microsoft Cognitive services. So, for example, you could submit a photo with a form submission, could be a pothole, for example, and you can use Copilot then to recognize what's in the photo and describe it in the adaptive card. Do you think that has a real sort of game-changing potential as well?
I think you're spot on there, Suraj, in terms of what this will open up for local government. I think, as you say, in Power Automate, Power Platform, we've got lots of connectors. So they've got things like AI Builder. So you've got plug and play connectors ready to go, building on what you were saying around image recognition, converting speech to text and text to speech. You know, there's lots of opportunity there for councils should they wish to use it. They've got some more powerful connectors in there, so things like chat GPT integration, so we can then get a bit more personalized in terms of the development of our prompts and building our own knowledge bases to tap into that. So I think the opportunities are endless. At Runnymede, we're on the cusp of starting our journey around this. I've been clear since leading the team that we need to have really strong foundations around our digital services. And for me, that meant stitching together our customer data. So our strategy at Runnymede is every contact counts. What that means is all of our call contacts, so our calls, our voicemail, general contact post, those cross-cutting customer contact is landing in Jadu Connect, so we can see that contact. And then any other services that we have across the organisation, like waste and recycling, complaints, antisocial behaviour, that complements that view. And now we've got that data there. Now it's time to look at how we leverage AI, because for me, lots of councils are rushing ahead and doing use cases and proof of concepts, and we've still got some foundational work to do across local government. So we've been working hard behind the scenes to get that foundation right. Now we've got these components and building blocks in place. I think it's really important now that we start to leverage Power Platform. Jadu Connect Service API makes it dead easy to kind of take data out of Connect and put it back in. And that really will then lay the path for adoption, I think, for AI in local government, who, you know, for those that are using Jadu for certain.
Yeah, definitely. And how has, and speaking about interoperability, because that's how you unlock the potential for AI, how has integrating teams into the workflow changed the way the council manages customer contact and sort of day-to-day tasks?
So we touched on this earlier, didn't we, I suppose? So it's a fundamental shift in terms of that core contact across the council. So previously a customer might write into the council, and then we would triage it in customer services. If they can't deal with it and it needs to go to a direct officer, we would forward it on and send an email, and then try and close the loop down with a form to do data capture. So this is a fundamental shift in terms of closing down that loop. We know we get lots of avoidable contact, if you like, where customers are maybe chasing for an answer, or they've had an answer and they want to follow up. So using adaptive cards, for me, bridges the gap between our customers, our customer services team, and the systems they use, which is Jadu Connect, and then back office staff, and it creates a nice link between the two, essentially. It links nicely into our one account, because all of our call contact lands in our one account, where residents can go online and check to see their telephone message, where is it and what's the update. They can check their voicemail they left with us. In the future, they'll be able to check things like we've sent a letter in, where's that at, for example. So for me, it's a bit of a game changer in terms of bridging that gap between our customers, our advisors, and then our back office staff. And closing that down is really important, because we can then shift that avoidable contact. We can have a better customer experience, because customers know where we're up to with that contact, and they know what's going to come next. So for me, it's a new part of our workflow, toolbox, if you like, and we will leverage it more for our corporate contact. And there will be other use cases that we're starting to think about where we could apply it as well. I think one thing we are looking at is, it's like all things within technology, we'll look at the business case for using adaptive cards. If it makes sense and it adds value, we will. Otherwise, we will then still roll people into Jadu Connect and get them onboarded with that, if there's a business case for people to have logins and manage customer contact in that way. So we're quite pragmatic in terms of the rollout of this.
Yeah, it takes case management out of the case management system and puts it in the environment that the employees, the teams are working in, doesn't it?
Exactly.
And it means you can unlock value across the organisation. Have you started thinking about other use cases, Stephen?
Yeah, so for us at the moment, we started with department callbacks, which is essentially telephone messages. We've built out proof of concepts and builds in our test system for general contact. So if someone fills in a general contact form, we built out the adaptive card element of that solution, and we're working on a new build at the moment for incoming post into the council. At the moment, we're not capturing that in the CRM system, so we're building out an automation using Power Automate to receive a scanned piece of incoming post, and then name it, and then potentially use some AI builder tools in the future to kind of convert handwritten text to text, and then create a case in Jadu. And then the adaptive card bit will come at the end in terms of we're sending that piece of post now to an officer, letting them know you've got post, so you can click on a link and open it. So we want to digitize that end to end. But get that feedback loop. What we're really keen and clear about is we want feedback from staff in terms of what have we done with that contact, so we can close the loop down.
And what kind of feedback have you had so far, Stephen?
We've had some really good positive feedback. I think from the leadership team, they were quite impressed with the integration we've developed, the speed that we've been able to turn this around as well. I think, we're hearing positive feedback around that. From our most popular users, we had some testing and some feedback sessions with them, and it was well received, and we got some good feedback around how we could make it even better. And I think because it is in Teams, people were really excited to see it in there. And our customer services team are saying, can we now use this for, service X, Y, Z? So I think it's inspiring the business to start to think about what more we could do with this capability in the future.
Thank you, Stephen. And it sounds like you've seen some phenomenal early results from enabling the integration with Jadu Platform, case management, and Microsoft Teams. It sounds like, it's a really powerful low-code workflow, simple to roll out. Sounds like it's pretty quick to roll out as well and at minimal cost. And as you say, really leveraging the assets that the council has. You mentioned that this was game-changing. I suppose just as a kind of final thought, in terms of local government reorganisation, for example, I mean, obviously the game is changing everywhere. There's a couple of hundred local authorities that might sort of consolidate into unitary authorities. So how do you think this kind of functionality will support that process?
So I think fundamentally, as you say, reorganisation will reset lots of digital services up and down the country. But I think what will be clear is majority of those councils merging, as we said before, are using Microsoft technology in their stack. So that includes Microsoft Teams. So leveraging an integration like this will be crucial for me in terms of joining customer contact and back office services. It will create that seamless customer experience of a brand new unitary authority, and making sure that we can leverage the automation capability within Power Automate to route it right through to the back office teams, create that customer contact in the CRM system, make that available in an account, but then bridging the gap between disparate systems that are going through a transition process in terms of merging together and transforming and resetting the way they will work as a team. So I think it's going to be really powerful and crucial in terms of the approach maybe that we could take a local government around joining together back office teams and creating that seamless customer experience. I think we said before, we touched on this today, the work that we can do in Power Automate can be reused, it can be shared with others. So as we build best practice and learning, I think there's something around building together a community so that we can start to look at how we leverage this. And I think, there's lots of opportunities there, I would say, Suraj.
I think it sums up the whole conversation here, Stephen. It's the opportunity that local government has through this reorganisation to really innovate, to really leverage a lot of what's common standards, accessibility, usability, GovUK design principles, interoperability. These are all things that can come together using modern platforms like Power Automate, like Jadu, linking them together, creating those common standards. What a great opportunity local government has to really properly reshape service to customers.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.